Ah, the French champagne.
There is the masterfully shot sequence of Jack whipping up some pancakes in the morning.
Ooh. Oh, yeah.
Ooh.
And poor Richard Karn is sitting there like, I need to pay my mortgage. I need to pay my mortgage.
I was like, what a good sport.
Yeah.
Like,
Really though, yeah. I
he is here to make this movie, and he's gonna do his job.
I wondered if like the orphan kid in the movie was like his nephew or something, and he was just doing somebody a favor.
I don't know, man. Because the newspaper owner, or the printing owner guy.
The guy
he's an actor, right?
The guy
yeah,
from
he's been
Oliver
in a lot of
Twist.
stuff.
Yeah, Fagin.
The chimney
He's,
sweep.
he's like, right, oh, we got a bunch of papers for you to deliver. If you do it before 5, there's an extra tip in it there for you. And I was like, what is happening?
I was unclear as to what his business was. He was just he was paying him to.
Is the flyer printing guy.
Yeah,
But
I guess he also distributes them.
Does he also have to put the flyers up?
He's a printing and distribution guy. Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta.
Who's from the Mary Streets of London?
Okay, so if his entire job is just printing flyers and paying small children to put them up, why is he so dirty?
Because he's Fagin.
Because they literally just put a character from Oliver in this.
Yeah. The little orphan boy who has only one model to look up to, and it's this greasy old English guy.
Yeah. Who's covered in like ink, I guess. He got like ink all over him.
Yeah.
I'm looking at my notes for this movie right now, and one of them is just Sean, I hate you.
Oh, buddy, I can read you 9 or 10 of those from my backlog.
But this Fagin character is a good example, though, of also like the lack of obstacles in this movie, where like kid shows up to the shop, opens the door, and who we would just call Fagin is like, "Oh, you were supposed to be here an hour ago." And the kid's like, "Oh, sorry." And he's like, "That's all right." And then they just like carry on, which is like a lot of the movie. Anyway, it doesn't do anything with looks, but just something to mention.
Yeah, but this also isn't looks. I guess he's looking at, because I thought the kid couldn't read. Because in the first, like, it says post no bills, and the cop's like, can't you read that? And he's like, I don't know what it means. I was like, oh, he can't read. And then he's looking at the skateboarding poster, the like very, like, that looks like I'd say that is the most successful look of the film, is what they did with that poster, because you could identify it from scene to scene. And he's looking at it, and they're like, are you going to the competition? And he's like, what? And I was like, he can't read the poster, shit. And then they dropped that. So I guess he could read? I don't know.
I think he was just like not putting the pieces together. I think he's the kid who doesn't know what the word bills mean. Yeah, like if I think back when I was like 8, I wouldn't know what post no bills means. I'd be like,
he's an orphan street kid who has to focus on more important things than reading signs on walls.
Yeah, he's a really cool orphan.
I thought
he's got to survive, man.
I thought we were going to get a really good I can't read plot line out of this. And so
that would have been my favorite if Jack actually instead just taught the kid to
read. I wanted Jack to adopt him in the end.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, that would be beautiful. Also, there was definitely a kid, like, I remember watching Most Valuable Primate, the first one, a few times when I was a kid. There was definitely like a protagonist young child in that film. What happened to him?
He grew up, probably.
Grew up.
Was torn apart by the chimps.
I think my favorite thing to do with looks is the scene in this movie where the kid, I forget his name. What was the kid's name? Ben? Tom?
Ben. It was Ben.
Was it Ben?
Ben Johnson or something.
We'll call him Ben.
Ben. Yeah, Ben Johnson, yeah.
He's sitting in the alley after he's realized that the cop has found his like hideout, and he has his like heartfelt monologue to Jack about how they're gonna get split up, and he's like gonna have to go back to the orphanage, and he's almost in tears. And every time they cut back to Jack, not only is he like totally dead faced, but his mouth is just, his jaw's like on the ground. Yeah,
it's like his lip is like hanging a foot down. Like,
yeah.
And there's just like no movement or anything in his face.
And that's so indicative of the whole movie, of like visually what you look at is like one person acting weirdly, clearly to no one.
Yep.
And then cuts to just
A monkey with brain damage.
Yeah.
Chimp that doesn't understand or care.
And they didn't even attempt to make it look. It's supposed to be in Seattle, so they had the Seattle that needle tower thing is.
Right, yeah.
But at the end, when they're leaving the arena after the final championship game, when they win the not Stanley Cup, there's a wide shot of them walking past the arena, and it just says Vancouver Canucks on the poster, and there's a guy in a Vancouver jersey on the banner. Guys.
Oh my God.
I'll say this also in terms of looks, I guess. We talk about the depiction of kind of black people and other ethnicities in King Kong. There were essentially no people of color in all of MVP. It was almost entirely 100% white. And I was like, okay, it is a movie about hockey and skateboarding in Seattle, but still, we finally spotted some people in the background. And one of the hockey scenes, there was like one black woman cheering, but like truly, like these movies, like this movie is like one of the whitest movies I've ever seen in terms of like not even anyone in the background.
But I mean, that is a good point though, that about it being a movie about hockey and skateboarding, two of like
Seattle.
the whitest in Seattle, like two of the whitest sports to ever be played or participated in. Yeah.
Yeah. But like still,
Yeah.
it's pretty rough. Whereas at least there were like black people in King Kong, sort of.
Like, hopefully they were paid in 1933.
Like, hopefully they were paid.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So let's talk about the looks though of King Kong. So they had a lot of these shots where it was all like stop motion of these like clay I don't know what they were, but like
they were made of like rubber and latex and steel. They had Sean, I think you and I both read the same Wikipedia article.
Yeah.
But they had like different models made of different things for different scenes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because I thought it was claymation too. I think that the humans might have been clay. But the animals were like a combination of different shit.
I think they made two different sizes of the like full-bodied ape maquette that could be like moved around stop motion style. They made two arms, different arms that you just see coming in to like grab at him. I guess
because he crushes some people in the village as he's breaking out.
Yeah. So there's the foot, and then they made the face that.
I thought that was a person in a gorilla mask. I will say the close-ups.
It's like a big animatronic face. It was big enough that they could have someone lie in its mouth.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's when I learned that it wasn't a person.
It was a two-person operated like lever, pulley, and pneumatic. Like giant puppet. So like these two guys were in there just like
with like no direction or practice.
Yeah.
So his face is just like like it's a mess.
It's very bizarre. But I'm sure I tried to pretend I was in a movie theater in 1933 watching this for the first time after hearing someone say like, you have to go see this film because you'll think you're in the jungle. And in the moments that I could drop into that, I fully was immersed in what they were doing.
Yeah, there was some moments that I was really impressed by, even by like today's standards. Like the art direction for all the stuff just outside the wall, like during the tribal ritual.
Yeah.
Oh my!
And all that stuff.
That
was fucking super cool.
They built such crazy stuff for this movie. Like the fact that they built those, like they built big doors and a big giant beam across them, and like all that, like they built a big wall.
Yeah,
it was crazy.
Yeah,
but it was like, I mean, it made such a difference to see that, and they had these big shots in general, like the actualization of this tribe's village and that wall and stuff. It was all like they just built it, and it looks pretty great.
Yeah.
And then they must have built a whole bunch of jungle sets too, which I can only imagine to be a nightmare. unless they went and filmed in the jungle.
Yeah.
But I don't think they did, because they had to be filming in studio because they were using like projections and stuff, right?
Yeah. So some of those shots, yes. So there were some of the shots were projected from behind, and Daniel, hop in because you probably know a lot more. I tried to understand the Wikipedia page for how they filmed this, but so they had projections, and then the actors in front looking at them with like set in there, and then some were ones where they like shot on the same film. They recorded on the same reel of film. So they would do like. They would do like her like, oh, and then being like picked up, and then they would film on the same piece of actual film. They would film like his hand coming out and grabbing her, and then they'd film it over top of it so that it looked like he was coming and grabbing her. Does that make sense, Daniel? Is that right?
That sounds right. I mean, I guess like the modern day equivalent of that would be like shooting the same space twice and then just like layering them on top of each other digitally. Yeah. So I guess like I've never heard of someone doing that with film. I didn't know you could do that, but that makes sense hearing you describe it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then
which is like super innovative. Like a lot of the stuff in a lot of the gorilla stuff looked comically bad.
Yes.
Yeah.
But for what they were trying to achieve, I was like awestruck for a lot of it. I mean, and even with the gorilla stuff, the only time that I was ever really disappointed was just like the close-ups when he wasn't doing anything and kind of just like reacting to things. But when he was fighting or climbing or all that, like, or he was like shaking the big tree and like knocking them. Yeah. And also making the choice to just like drop life-sized dummies and just watch them like hit the ground was super impactful. Yeah.
Also, I think the most effective part for me was when he's fighting the T-Rex and he's got him down and he's grabbing his jaw and he's struggling to, and you're watching you're watching the struggle, and you can tell it's claymation and maquettes and stuff like that, but you're so invested with him prying his jaw open, and then when he finally snaps it, you're like, oh God, oh, it's so uncomfortable.
And that kind of hits on two things that one of the two things that I would say I really appreciated, like little efforts they made. And the first one that I'll relate to what you said, Sean, is just like the commitment of the filmmakers to what their visuals were. Is what really helped it for me. Like that it wasn't like they were trying to like hide, like some films you see now where it's like the effect they're trying to be like, like don't like, don't like, hopefully we fooled you. Like, whereas this is like, this is it. That's Kong and he's fighting that dinosaur and you're going to watch that for 90 seconds.
Yeah.
So that's it. Like that's Kong. Like get used to that. Like that's what it is. That's how our film looks.
Stegosaur charge straight at the screen. And then suddenly it stops, Ooh.
Yeah. And the other thing that was quite cool that was a great bit of creativity on the part of the filmmakers, just to like help blend the two worlds, because there's a lot of that, right? There's a lot of these two things that needed to be made into one movie. And they would do things like with the Stegosaurus, for example, it like turns around, or it might have been another animal or dinosaur or something, but I think it was Stegosaurus. It like turns around and its tail like swings across like close to them. And they had the real bushes that were put in front of the screen get moved at the same time, as though it was the tail that moved it in a way that was really like well done. And it was just like a great, like they did little stuff like that really made a difference. In making it seem less schlocky.
When they're walking, it might be the same scene. They think they've killed the Stegosaurus, and they're walking, and it's clearly them on a conveyor belt in front of the projector, and that started. And I went, "Oh no, this is going to be bad." But what is being projected is fascinating. So I completely forgot about how schlocky it looked in front, and it was really effective.
Because the stop motion is incredible in this movie.
Yeah.
Like that needs to be said. Like the stop motion is unbelievable. It's not realism, but it's incredible artistry put into that stop motion of like pretty intense like fight choreography. Like way more than I thought.
And like a lot of it. Like a lot of fight scenes. Yeah.
And like really interesting design of these different beasts that are on the island and how they fight with Kong and how they move in their unique ways. And yeah, it was fascinating.
Fascinating, yes. Although I was unclear as to why a giant gorilla exists on an island with what seems to be exclusively dinosaurs. Movie. Okay, movie. Right. Sorry, I forgot. All right, never mind.
Movie.
Fuck me.
I like how they describe him as being as tall as a house in this film. And in the current incarnation, he's big enough that he is going to fight Godzilla in the next incarnation of Kong that we're going to see.
Right. Well, I mean, that's because is it the same Kong as Kong Skull Island? Because he's like a skyscraper in that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's getting bigger all the time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, looks.
Yeah. End of round here.
Penis.
I was gonna say that.
I know you were. I knew you were.
No.
The Citizen Kane of the week is